That ticking sound you hear from your engine isn't a countdown to your destination. It's a time bomb. And the scary part is, you might be the one who set it, all during something as simple as an oil change. People think of an oil change as basic maintenance, a chore to get out of the way. That's a dangerous mindset. In reality, it's more like performing surgery on the heart of your vehicle, especially if we're talking about a used SUV that's already seen its share of miles. The line between saving a few bucks and causing thousands of dollars in catastrophic engine failure is terrifyingly thin. Today, we're not just talking about common slip-ups. We're exposing the 19 fatal errors that turn a routine task into a death sentence for your motor. What you're about to hear will permanently change the way you look at that bottle of motor oil and that wrench in your hand. If you believe your car deserves a long and healthy life and you want to avoid the financial nightmare of a blown engine, do yourself a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel with notifications on. This isn't just another car video. This is an investment in your vehicle's future. Let's get started. Number 1. Using the wrong oil viscosity. Walking into an auto parts store can be overwhelming. You're faced with a wall of oil bottles, all with different numbers and letters: 5W30, 10W40, 0W20, 5W20. It's tempting to just grab the one that's on sale or the one your friend uses in his completely different car. This is a catastrophic gamble. Using the wrong oil viscosity is like giving your engine the wrong blood type. The engineers who designed your engine did so with incredibly precise tolerances, and they specified a particular oil viscosity to maintain a perfect protective film between moving metal parts at a specific pressure and temperature. Choosing a different viscosity, even one that seems close, throws that entire delicate balance into chaos. If you use an oil that is too thin, for example, putting 5W20 in an engine designed for 10W40 at operating temperature, the oil film can become so weak that it breaks down under pressure. This leads to metal-on-metal contact between components like the crankshaft bearings, camshaft lobes, and cylinder walls. The result is accelerated, catastrophic wear that will silently destroy your engine from the inside out. Conversely, if you use an oil that is too thick, like putting 20W50 in a modern engine that calls for 0W20, the oil pump will struggle to circulate it, especially during a cold start. The oil won't be able to flow quickly enough into the tiny, precise clearances of modern engines, leading to oil starvation in critical areas like the valve train. This causes premature wear and can even trigger check engine lights related to camshaft timing systems that rely on oil pressure to function correctly. Engines rely on a principle called hydrodynamic lubrication. As parts move, like a crankshaft spinning in a bearing, they pull a wedge of oil into the clearance between them. This creates a high-pressure film that physically separates the metal surfaces. The viscosity of the oil is the critical factor that determines the strength and stability of this film. The correct viscosity ensures the film is maintained under all operating loads and temperatures. Modern engines, especially in SUVs, use VVT systems to improve efficiency and power. These systems use pressurized engine oil to actuate phasers that change the timing of the camshafts. These systems are designed to operate with a specific oil viscosity. Oil that is too thick or too thin will alter the hydraulic response time of the VVT actuators, leading to incorrect valve timing, poor performance, reduced fuel economy, and diagnostic trouble codes, DTCs. Always, without exception, consult your owner's manual. It will state the exact SAE viscosity grade required for your engine. The manufacturer spent millions of dollars on research and development to determine that specific grade. Don't let a guess based on a sale price undo all of that engineering and destroy your motor. Number 2. The mistake of overfilling. More is better, right? When it comes to motor oil, that logic is not just wrong, it's incredibly destructive. After draining the old oil, many people will simply dump in the entire contents of a 5-quart jug, assuming that's what the car takes. They might glance at the dipstick, but they fail to give the oil enough time to settle in the pan, resulting in an inaccurate reading. An overfilled engine is a ticking time bomb. The space inside the oil pan is precisely calculated. When you add too much oil, the level rises to the point where the spinning crankshaft begins to whip through it like a giant egg beater. This has two immediate and disastrous effects. First, it aerates the oil, whipping it into a useless, frothy foam. This foam is then picked up by the oil pump. The problem is that foam is mostly air, and air does not lubricate. The oil pump tries to push this foamy mixture through the engine's tiny oil passages, but the air bubbles collapse under pressure, leading to a dramatic loss of oil pressure and starving critical components of lubrication. This causes rapid wear on bearings, camshafts, and lifters. Second, the extra effort of the crankshaft churning through the thick liquid oil creates a huge amount of parasitic drag on the engine, robbing it of horsepower and destroying fuel economy. In some cases, the pressure inside the crankcase can build to a point where it blows out engine seals, like the front or rear main seals, leading to massive oil leaks that are very expensive to repair. When the crankshaft whips the oil, it causes aeration, the entrainment of air bubbles. When this aerated oil is drawn into the oil pump, the rapid pressure changes can cause the air bubbles to violently collapse, a phenomenon known as cavitation. Cavitation is destructive to the oil pump's internal components and severely degrades the oil's ability to form a protective hydrodynamic film in the engine bearings. The positive crankcase ventilation (PCV) system is designed to manage normal pressure inside the crankcase. However, the violent churning action from overfilling creates excessive pressure and oil mist that can overwhelm the PCV system. This pressure has to go somewhere, and it will seek the path of least resistance, which is often the engine's main seals, valve cover gaskets, or oil pan gasket. The dipstick is your only guide. After draining the old oil and replacing the filter, start by adding about 1 quart less than the specified capacity listed in your owner's manual. Start the engine and let it run for 30 seconds to circulate the oil and fill the new filter. Then, shut it off and wait at least 5 to 10 minutes for all the oil to drain back down into the pan. This wait is critical. Then, pull the dipstick, wipe it clean, reinsert it fully, and pull it out again to get an accurate reading. Add oil in small increments, about 1/4 of a quart at a time, repeating the checking process until the level is exactly at the full mark. Never, ever go above it. Number 3. The dangers of underfilling. The opposite of overfilling is, of course, underfilling, and it is arguably even more dangerous. This often happens out of caution or miscalculation. Someone might not have bought enough oil, or they misread the dipstick and stopped adding oil too soon. An engine that is even 1 quart low on oil is in serious jeopardy. The oil pump has a pickup tube that sits near the bottom of the oil pan. If the oil level is too low, during cornering, braking, or acceleration, the oil can slosh away from the pickup tube. For a brief moment, the pump will suck in air instead of oil. This creates an air pocket in the lubrication system, causing a momentary but complete loss of oil pressure to critical parts. While a single instance might not cause immediate failure, the cumulative effect of these repeated oil starvation events is catastrophic. It rapidly wears down engine bearings, scuffs cylinder walls, and damages the valve train. Furthermore, having less oil in the system means the oil that is there has to work much harder. There's less of it to absorb heat, so the overall oil temperature will run much higher. This extreme heat causes the oil to break down and oxidize much faster, losing its lubricating properties and forming harmful sludge. The engine essentially runs hotter and with less protection, a combination that drastically shortens its life. When the oil pickup tube is uncovered due to a low oil level and vehicle motion, sloshing, the oil pump ingests air. This immediately breaks down the hydrodynamic wedge in the bearings, causing metal-on-metal contact. The damage from this is cumulative and irreversible. Motor oil has a finite capacity to absorb and carry away heat. With a reduced volume of oil in the sump, each molecule of oil must absorb more heat energy as it circulates. This accelerates the process of thermal oxidation, where the oil reacts with oxygen at high temperatures. This process thickens the oil, forms sludge and varnish, and depletes the crucial additives, effectively ruining the oil long before its scheduled change interval. The solution is the same as for overfilling: meticulous use of the dipstick. Follow the correct procedure of adding oil incrementally and checking the level on a level surface after letting the oil settle. The space between the ADD and full marks on your dipstick typically represents 1 quart or 1 liter. The ideal level is precisely on the full mark, not below it. Running your engine low on oil is like forcing a marathon runner to compete heat while severely dehydrated. It's a guarantee of failure. Number 4. The drain. Plug, torque, tragedy. The drain plug seems so simple. It's just a bolt, but the mishandling of this one component is responsible for countless destroyed engines and emptied bank accounts. The mistake comes in two forms: over-tightening and under-tightening. Let's start with the more common and instantly destructive error: over-tightening. Many DIYers operate under the tighter is better philosophy. They'll put a huge wrench on the drain plug and heave on it with all their might. This is a recipe for disaster. The oil pan on most cars is made of thin stamped steel, or increasingly cast aluminum. When you over-torque the steel drain plug into the softer aluminum threads of the pan, you are guaranteed to strip them out. It might not happen the first time, but you are weakening them with every oil change. When they finally let go, the plug will no longer seal, leading to a massive oil leak. Worse yet, some people manage to crack the entire oil pan, a repair that can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars to replace. The other side of this coin is under-tightening. Out of fear of stripping the threads, someone might only snug the plug up gently. This is just as dangerous. Engine vibration, combined with the cycles of heating and cooling, can cause an under-tightened plug to work itself loose over time. It might start as a small drip, but it could eventually fall out completely while you're driving down the highway. The result is the instantaneous and total loss of all engine oil. By the time the oil pressure warning light comes on, it's already too late. The engine will be starved of oil and will seize, destroying itself in a matter of seconds. Torque is a measure of rotational force. Every bolt on a vehicle has a specific torque value, measured in foot-pounds, FTLLBs, or Newton-meters, determined by its size, thread pitch, and the materials it's clamping together. This specification is designed to stretch the bolt just enough to create the perfect amount of clamping force without exceeding its elastic limit or damaging the threads it's screwed into. A steel drain plug is significantly harder than a cast aluminum oil pan. When excessive force is applied, the softer aluminum threads will deform and shear long before the steel plug is damaged. This is why it's almost always the pan that gets stripped, not the plug. The only correct way to handle a drain plug is with a torque wrench. Look up the specific torque specification for your vehicle's drain plug online or in a service manual. It's usually a surprisingly low number, often around 20 to 25 FTLBs. Clean the plug and the pan's sealing surface. Install a new crush washer. We'll get to that next. Thread the plug in by hand to avoid cross-threading, and then use the torque wrench to tighten it to the exact specified value. It's a simple, cheap tool that eliminates all guesswork and could save you from a multi-thousand-dollar repair. Number 5. Reusing the crush washer. This is one of the most penny-wise and pound-foolish mistakes in all of automotive maintenance. That little metal ring, either copper or aluminum, that goes on the drain plug is called a crush washer or a gasket. Its sole purpose in life is to be used once and then discarded. Many people pull the plug, see the washer still on it, and just thread it right back in, thinking, it looks fine. What's the big deal? The big deal is in its name: crush washer. It's made of a soft metal that is designed to deform and crush when the drain plug is tightened to its proper torque. This crushing action allows it to fill in any microscopic imperfections on the sealing surfaces of the drain plug and the oil pan, creating a perfect leak-proof seal. When you reuse it, it has already been work-hardened. It won't crush any further. It loses its ability to conform to the surfaces, and no matter how much you tighten the plug, you will never achieve a perfect seal. This will inevitably lead to a slow, persistent oil leak. It might just be a few drops a night on your driveway, which is bad for the environment and your wallet as you constantly have to top off the oil. But the real danger is that you might be tempted to compensate for the leak by over-tightening the drain plug, which leads us right back to the previous fatal error of stripping the threads in your oil pan. You could turn a 50-cent problem into a $500 disaster. When metals like copper and aluminum are plastically deformed, crushed, their crystal structure changes, making them harder and more brittle. A new crush washer is in an annealed, softened state. Once it's torqued down, it becomes work-hardened. Attempting to torque it again will not cause it to deform and seal further. Instead, it will resist the force, increasing the likelihood of thread damage to the oil pan as the user applies more torque to try and stop a leak. No machined surface is perfectly flat. On a microscopic microscopic level, they have peaks and valleys. A soft, single-use gasket is designed to flow into these imperfections under pressure, creating a positive seal that a hard, flat surface cannot achieve. A reused, hardened washer cannot do this effectively. Brush washers are incredibly cheap. You can buy them in assorted packs or individually for pennies. There is absolutely no excuse to ever reuse one. Every single time the drain plug comes out, a brand new crush washer must go back on. It is the cheapest insurance policy you will ever buy for your engine. Number 6. The curse of the cheap oil filter. The oil filter is the kidney of your engine. Its job is to continuously clean the oil, removing the harmful particles and contaminants we talked about earlier. Just like with oil itself, not all filters are created equal. It's incredibly tempting to save $5 or $10 by grabbing the cheapest, no-name white filter off the shelf. This is a profoundly dangerous mistake. The price difference between a cheap filter and a quality original equipment manufacturer, OEM, or reputable aftermarket filter like Wix, Bosch, or Mobil One reflects a massive difference in internal construction, materials, and quality control. Cheap filters cut corners in every conceivable way. They use a thinner metal canister that can flex or puncture. They use a poorly designed anti-drainback valve made of cheap nitrile rubber that gets hard and fails, allowing oil to drain from the filter back into the pan when the engine is off. This causes a dry start the next time you turn the key, where the engine runs for several critical seconds without oil pressure, causing significant wear over time. Most importantly, cheap filters use a minimal amount of very low-quality filter media. They use less paper, and the paper they do use has larger pores, which means it simply doesn't catch the smaller, most damaging particles. The effectiveness of a filter is measured by its efficiency rating, often expressed as a percentage of particles of a certain size, in microns, that it can capture. A quality filter might be 99% efficient at capturing particles of 20 microns or larger. A cheap filter may only be 80% efficient, allowing a significant number of damaging particles to circulate continuously through the engine's bearings and tight tolerance areas. The filter media in quality filters is often a synthetic blend or a dense cellulose material, pleated to maximize surface area. All oil filters have an internal bypass valve. Its purpose is to open and allow oil to bypass the filter media if the filter becomes completely clogged or if the oil is too thick, like on a very cold start, to pass through the media. In a cheap filter, this bypass valve may have a weak spring with an incorrect pressure rating. It might open too early, allowing dirty oil to circulate unnecessarily, or it might fail to open when needed, leading to oil starvation. Spending a few extra dollars on a quality oil filter is one of the best investments you can make for your engine's longevity. A good filter will protect your engine with a properly functioning anti-drainback valve, a robust canister, and high-efficiency media that captures the particles that actually cause wear. A cheap filter is just a liability bolted to the side of your engine block. Number 7. Changing the oil, but not the filter. This is an act of pure negligence that completely undermines the entire point of an oil change. Some people, in an attempt to save a few dollars and a little bit of effort, will drain the old oil but leave the old, dirty oil filter in place. This is a catastrophic mistake. The old filter is completely saturated with all the sludge, metal particles, and contaminants it has removed from the oil over the last several thousand miles. When you pour in your brand new, clean, and expensive synthetic oil, it immediately has to circulate through this disgusting, clogged filter. The new oil is instantly contaminated with the very things you were trying to remove. Furthermore, a clogged filter will force its bypass valve to open, meaning most of the time your new oil won't even be filtered at all. It will simply circulate all the trapped gunk from the old filter right back through your engine's delicate bearings. You are essentially pouring clean oil into a dirty bucket and then pouring that dirty mixture into your engine. You have completely wasted your time and money and have done almost nothing to protect your engine. An oil filter has a finite capacity for holding dirt. Once this capacity is reached, the differential pressure across the filter media increases. When this pressure reaches a preset level, e.g. 8 or 11 psi, the bypass valve opens to prevent oil starvation. Leaving an old filter in place means it is likely already at or near its saturation point. Therefore, the new oil will spend most of its time in bypass mode, receiving little to no filtration. The contaminants held in the old filter can chemically react with the new oil's additive package, change, particularly the detergents and dispersants. This causes the additives to be depleted much more rapidly, drastically shortening the effective service life of the new oil. The rule is absolute. The oil and the filter are a team. They get changed together every single time. There are no exceptions. The cost of a new filter is insignificant compared to the cost of the damage you will cause by leaving the old one in place. Number 8. Forgetting to lubricate the new filter gasket. This is a simple 5-second step that, when forgotten, can lead to one of the most catastrophic failures possible during an oil change. Every new oil filter has a rubber O-ring gasket on its sealing surface. This gasket needs to be lubricated with a thin film of clean motor oil before it's installed. Many people, either in a hurry or because they don't know any better, will spin the new filter on completely dry. The problem is that a dry rubber gasket will bind and stretch as you tighten the filter against the metal engine block. Instead of seating smoothly, it can get twisted, pinched, or torn. It might feel tight, but you have actually created a compromised seal. Everything might seem fine at first. You finish the oil change, start the car, and check for leaks. Seeing none, you go for a drive. But as the engine heats up and the oil pressure builds, the damaged gasket can suddenly and completely fail. It can blow out, causing the entire contents of your engine's oil sump to be pumped out onto the ground in less than a minute. You will experience a total and instantaneous loss of oil pressure. By the time you see the warning light and pull over, your engine has already suffered irreversible terminal damage from oil starvation, all because of a forgotten dab of oil on a rubber ring. A dry rubber gasket has a high coefficient of friction against a metal surface. This friction causes the gasket to grab and resist turning as the filter is tightened. This torsional force can stretch and tear the rubber. Applying a layer of oil acts as a lubricant, dramatically reducing the coefficient of friction and allowing the gasket to slide smoothly against the mounting surface. This ensures it compresses evenly to create a perfect 360-degree seal without being damaged. The rubber elastomer used for the gasket is designed to swell slightly with exposure to heat and oil, which helps maintain a good seal. However, if the gasket is already nicked or torn from a dry installation, this swelling, combined with the 40 to 60 psi of oil pressure pushing against it, can cause the small tear to propagate rapidly, leading to a complete blowout failure. The correct procedure is non-negotiable. Before you install any new oil filter, dip your finger in some of the new clean motor oil and wipe a generous film all the way around the rubber gasket. This ensures it will seat perfectly and create the reliable seal your engine depends on. It's a tiny detail that makes the difference between a successful service and a roadside disaster. Number 9. Ignoring the engine's temperature. This is where the very first mistake happens, before a single drop of old oil has even been drained. Many people, in their rush to get the job done, will start an oil change on a completely cold engine. They think, it's safer, right? No hot parts to burn myself on. While the intention is good, the result is disastrous for the health of your engine. The entire purpose of an oil change is to remove not just the old degraded oil, but also the countless microscopic enemies suspended within it. We're talking about metal shavings from normal wear and tear, soot, unburnt fuel, sludge, and other contaminants that act like liquid sandpaper inside your engine's delicate passageways. When the oil is cold, it is thick and viscous, almost like molasses. These harmful particles, which are heavier than the oil itself, settle at the bottom of the oil pan and cling to the engine's internal surfaces. When you pull the drain plug on a cold engine, the thick oil oozes out slowly and lazily, leaving behind a significant amount of this toxic sludge. You might get most of the oil out, but you're leaving the deadliest contaminants behind to immediately poison the fresh oil you're about to pour in. Motor oil viscosity is inversely proportional to its temperature. Cold oil has a high viscosity, meaning it has a high resistance to flow. The Society of Automotive Engineers (SAE) grading system, e.g. 5W30, indicates this. The W stands for winter, and the number preceding it indicates its viscosity at low temperatures. A lower number means it flows better when cold. However, even 0W oil is significantly thicker at room temperature than it is at operating temperature. The primary function of motor oil, besides lubrication and cooling, is to hold contaminants in suspension. This is achieved through detergent and dispersant additives. At operating temperature, typically 195 to 220 degrees or 90 to 104 degrees, the oil flows with very low viscosity, creating a turbulent environment environment inside the engine that keeps these particles suspended. When cold, the flow is laminar, and gravity causes these particles to sediment in the oil pan, valve covers, and other low-flow areas. Draining it cold is essentially like trying to clean a muddy bucket by only pouring out the water on top, leaving the thick mud at the bottom. The correct procedure is to run the engine for about 5 to 10 minutes, just enough to bring it up to its normal operating temperature. You don't need to drive it hard, just let it idle or take a short, gentle trip around the block. This warms the oil, drastically reducing its viscosity and stirring up all those settled contaminants, ensuring that when you pull that drain plug, you're getting a complete and cleansing evacuation of everything that could harm your engine. You're not just changing the oil, you're performing a full detox. Number 10. Working on an unlevel surface. This seems like a minor detail, but its consequences are major. Many people perform oil changes wherever their car happens to be parked, on a sloped driveway, on the street with a high crown, or with one side jacked up higher than the other. Performing an oil change on an unlevel surface introduces two significant problems. First, it prevents the old oil from draining completely. The drain plug is strategically located at the lowest point of the oil pan when the car is level. If the car is tilted in any other direction, a significant pool of old, contaminated oil will be trapped in a corner of the pan, unable to reach the drain hole. This is just as bad as draining the oil cold. You're leaving behind a toxic soup of sludge and metal particles that will immediately contaminate your expensive new oil, reducing its effectiveness and lifespan from the very first minute. Second, and just as critically, you cannot get an accurate reading on the dipstick when the car is not level. The oil in the pan will be tilted, and the dipstick will show a reading that is either falsely high or falsely low, depending on which way the car is leaning. This leads directly to one of our other fatal errors: overfilling or underfilling. You might think you filled it perfectly, but once you drive onto a level surface, you'll discover you're a full quart over or a full quart under, and the damage has already begun. This is a simple principle of physics. A liquid in a container will always seek the lowest point due to gravity. The oil pan and drain plug are designed to exploit this on a level plane. Any deviation from level creates a new, artificial low point away from the drain plug, trapping a residual volume of fluid. The markings on an engine's dipstick are calibrated to be accurate only when the vehicle is on a perfectly level surface. The tube the dipstick goes into is set at a specific angle relative to the engine block and oil pan. Tilting the entire assembly renders the markings meaningless, as the surface of the oil is no longer parallel to the calibrated full and ADD marks. The rule is simple and absolute. Find the flattest, most level ground you possibly can before you even think about reaching for a wrench. Your garage floor is usually the best option. If you're working on a slight incline, use ramps to level the vehicle out. Taking a few extra minutes to ensure your car is perfectly level guarantees a complete drain and an accurate fill, two of the most fundamental requirements for a successful oil change. Number 11. Not allowing enough drain time. Patience is a virtue, especially during an oil change. In a rush to finish the job, many people will pull the drain plug, let the oil gush out for a minute or two until it slows to a trickle, and then immediately put the plug back in. This is a mistake. Even after the main flow has stopped, a surprising amount of old, dirty oil will continue to drip out for several minutes. This is the thickest, sludgiest, most contaminated oil from the very bottom of the pan. By putting the plug back in too early, you are intentionally trapping this poison in your engine to be mixed with your fresh oil. To do the job right, you need to allow the oil to drain until it has slowed to a very infrequent drip, maybe one drip every 5 to 10 seconds. This can take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the engine and the temperature of the oil. This is a perfect time to perform other tasks, like inspecting the old oil for any signs of metal shavings or coolant, replacing the oil filter, or checking your tire pressures. Rushing the drain process defeats a primary purpose of the oil change, which is to remove as many contaminants as possible. The oil closest to the internal surfaces of the oil pan is held by surface tension and forms a boundary layer that flows more slowly than the oil in the center of the stream. This slow-moving layer is often rich in settled contaminants. Allowing adequate drain time gives this layer and the oil trapped in various nooks and crannies enough time to succumb to gravity and drip out of the drain hole. Walk away and let it drain. Give it at least 15 minutes. The goal isn't just to get the oil out, it's to get everything out. That extra patience ensures your new oil starts its life in the cleanest possible environment. environment. Number 12. Ignoring oil specifications, API, ACEA. This error is more subtle than viscosity, but just as deadly. Many people think that as long as the numbers match, like 5W30, any bottle of 5W30 will do. This is a complete fallacy. Beyond the viscosity grade, you must pay attention to the oil's performance specification, usually indicated by an API, American Petroleum Institute, or ACEA, Association des Constructeurs Européens d'Automobiles, code. You'll see these in a small circle or donut on the back of the bottle, with codes like API SP, API SN, or ACEA A3B4. These codes aren't just marketing jargon, they represent a complex blend of additives and a battery of rigorous tests the oil has passed. These tests measure the oil's ability to prevent sludge, reduce wear, resist oxidation, protect against deposits at high temperatures, and more. A newer engine, especially a turbocharged one in a modern SUV, requires the latest API specification, like API SP, because it contains specific additives to combat issues like low-speed pre-ignition, LSPI, a destructive phenomenon in modern direct injection engines. Using an older oil, like an API SL, in an engine that requires API SP is like feeding a high-performance athlete a diet of junk food. It might keep them going for a short while, but you're depriving the engine of the essential protections it was designed to have, leading to sludge buildup, turbocharger failure, and internal damage. The difference between service classifications is the additive package. This can include zinc dialkyl dithiophosphate, ZDDP, as an anti-wear agent, calcium or magnesium sulfonates as detergents to prevent sludge, and various antioxidants and friction modifiers. For example, the transition from API SN to SN+, and then to SP was driven by the need to combat LSPI in turbocharged gasoline direct injection (TGDI) engines. The newer formulations adjust the calcium detergent levels and add other components like molybdenum and titanium to prevent the uncontrolled combustion events that can destroy pistons. LSPI is an uncontrolled combustion event that occurs at low speeds and high loads in TGDI engines. It's believed to be caused by oil droplets or carbon deposits igniting the fuel-air mixture before the spark plug fires. The resulting pressure spike is incredibly violent and can crack pistons or bend connecting rods. Oils meeting the API SP specification are specifically formulated to prevent this. Again, your owner's manual is your Bible. It will list the minimum API or ACEA specification your engine needs. Using an oil that meets or exceeds this spec is non-negotiable. It's the only way to guarantee you're providing the specific chemical protection your modern, complex engine demands to survive. Number 13. Cross-threading the drain plug or filter. Cross-threading is the act of starting a threaded object like a plug or a filter at an angle. Instead of the male threads seating perfectly into the female threads, they cut across them, creating new, damaged threads. This is an incredibly common and destructive mistake, usually caused by impatience. People are often in an awkward position under the car and try to start the drain plug or the filter with a wrench instead of by hand. A wrench gives you no feel for what the threads are doing. By the time you realize something is wrong, you've already permanently damaged the threads. If you cross-thread the drain plug into the aluminum oil pan, you've essentially destroyed the pan. It will never seal properly again, and the only correct fix is to replace the entire oil pan, which is a costly and labor-intensive job. Some people might try to force it in, thinking they can just tighten it more to stop the leak, but that just worsens the damage and guarantees a leak or a stripped pan. Cross-threading the oil filter is just as bad. The threaded post the filter screws onto is part of the engine block or a separate oil filter housing. If you cross-thread the filter and damage those threads, you've created a nightmare scenario. The filter won't seal correctly against its gasket, leading to a massive oil leak right at the point of highest pressure, and you may have damaged a component that is extremely difficult and expensive to replace. Proper threading involves the helical grooves of the bolt, external threads, meshing perfectly with the helical grooves of the hole, internal threads. Cross-threading forces the crest of one thread into the valley of another at an angle. This mismatch causes galling, a form of wear caused by adhesion between sliding surfaces. As the part is forced, the metal from the two surfaces essentially welds together on a microscopic level and then is torn apart, destroying the thread profile. The initial threading of any component, movement should require almost zero torque. It should spin freely with your fingertips. The need to apply any force with a tool during the initial turns is a definitive sign of cross-threading. The prevention for this is beautifully simple. Always, always, always start threaded components by hand. Whether it's the drain plug or the oil filter, you must be able to turn it for at least 2 or 3 full rotations using only your fingertips. If you feel any resistance at all, stop immediately. Back it out, reposition it, and try again until it spins in smoothly. Only after it is properly started by hand should you ever put a wrench or a filter tool on it to apply the final torque. This single habit will save you from some of the most expensive and frustrating repairs imaginable. Number 14. Forgetting to remove the old gasket. This is a sneaky mistake that can catch even experienced mechanics off guard. Sometimes when you unscrew the old oil filter, its rubber sealing gasket sticks to the engine block's mounting surface instead of coming off with the filter. If you don't notice this and proceed to install the new filter, you will be creating what's known as double gasketing. You will be trying to seal the new filter's gasket against the old, hardened rubber gasket. This creates an extremely weak and unreliable seal. There is no way for the two rubber surfaces to seal against each other properly. As soon as the engine is started and oil pressure builds, this faulty seal will fail spectacularly. It won't be a slow drip. It will be a massive, high-pressure leak that will empty your engine of oil in seconds. This is one of the most common causes of catastrophic engine failure immediately following a DIY oil change. It's a simple oversight with the most severe consequences possible. A proper seal is formed when a single, pliable gasket is compressed between two smooth, clean metal surfaces, the filter and the engine block. The compression creates a uniform pressure that prevents fluid from escaping. Attempting to compress a new gasket against an old, hardened, and uneven one creates multiple leak paths. The pressure is not distributed evenly, and the seal has virtually no integrity, especially against oil pressure that can exceed 60 psi. The prevention is a mandatory and conscious check every single time. As soon as the old filter is off, you must visually inspect and also physically wipe the filter mounting surface on the engine block with a clean rag. Your finger will immediately feel if the old gasket is still stuck there. It must be a clean, smooth metal surface before the new filter goes on. This 2-second wipe down is a non-negotiable step that will prevent a total engine catastrophe. Number 15. Stripping the filter housing. While over-tightening the drain plug is common, over-tightening the oil filter is just as prevalent and can be equally destructive. The filter only needs to be tightened enough to compress its gasket and create a seal. The old advice of hand tight plus a quarter turn is generally a good guideline. However, many people will put a filter wrench on a new filter and crank on it as hard as they can. This can cause several problems. It can damage the gasket, causing a leak. It can distort the thin metal canister of the filter itself. Worst of all, it can make the filter nearly impossible to remove during the next oil change. You or the next mechanic might have to resort to destructive methods to get it off, risking damage to the filter mounting surface. On vehicles with a cartridge-style filter with a plastic or aluminum housing cap, over-tightening is even more dangerous. These caps are fragile and have a specific low torque specification. Cranking on them with excessive force will crack the housing, leading to a massive oil leak and requiring an expensive replacement part. Over-tightening an oil filter's gasket compresses it beyond its designed limit. This can permanently deform the rubber, a condition known as compression set, reducing its ability to expand and contract with heat cycles, which can lead to leaks over time. The plastic or aluminum caps used for cartridge filters are highly susceptible to stress fractures when over-torqued. The torque specification is designed to provide just enough force to compress an O-ring and create a seal, not to provide significant clamping force. Exceeding this torque value will cause the material to crack, often at the base of the hex head or along the threaded portion. Respect the torque. For spin-on filters, lubricate the gasket, spin it on by hand until it makes contact, and then tighten it by hand an additional 3/4 of a turn, or follow the specific instructions on the filter box. For cartridge-style filters, you must use a torque wrench and tighten the housing cap to the exact specification printed on the cap or listed in the service manual. Do not guess. Number 16. Using the wrong tools. The right tool for the right job isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a critical mantra for automotive work. Using the wrong tool during an oil change can quickly lead to stripped bolts, broken parts, and personal injury. The most common offense is using an adjustable wrench or, even worse, a pair of pliers on the drain plug. An adjustable wrench is designed to be a jack of all trades, but it's a master of none. It rarely fits the bolt head perfectly, leaving small gaps. When you apply force, the jaws can slip and round off the corners of the drain plug's head. Once the corners are rounded, getting a proper grip on it becomes nearly impossible, turning a simple oil change into a major ordeal involving locking pliers and hammers, which further risks damaging the oil pan. The correct tool is always a 6-point socket or a 6-point box-end wrench that matches the exact size of the drain plug. The 6 points of contact grip the flat sides of the bolt head, not the corners, allowing you to apply significant torque without any risk of slipping or rounding it off. Similarly, for the oil filter, people often resort to desperate measures like jamming a screwdriver through the canister to get it off. While this might eventually work, it's an incredibly messy and dangerous method that risks puncturing the filter in a way that makes it even harder to remove and can damage the filter housing. The proper tools, like a cap wrench that fits over the end of the filter, a claw wrench, or a band wrench, are inexpensive and designed to remove the filter without drama or damage. A 12-point wrench or a loose-fitting adjustable wrench applies force to the very corners of a hexagonal bolt head. These corners are points of high stress concentration. When torque is applied, the force is focused on these small areas, causing the metal to deform and round off. A 6-point socket engages the broad, flat sides of the bolt head, distributing the force evenly and dramatically reducing the risk of rounding. Proper tools are designed to provide the correct leverage and grip. Using pliers on a drain plug, for example, offers very poor mechanical advantage and a high likelihood of the tool slipping, which can cause busted knuckles and damage to the vehicle. Invest in a basic, quality socket set, a set of combination wrenches, and the correct type of oil filter wrench for your vehicle. These tools will not only make the job faster and easier, but will also prevent the costly damage that comes from trying to make the wrong tool work. Number 17. Misreading the dipstick. The dipstick seems like the simplest tool in the world, but it is frequently misread, leading to the critical errors of over or underfilling. One common mistake is not inserting the dipstick all the way into its tube when taking a reading. This will give you a falsely low reading, causing you to add more oil and overfill the engine. Another mistake is checking the oil immediately after shutting the engine off. The oil is still circulating throughout the top of the engine and hasn't had time to drain back to the pan, which will also result in a falsely low reading. Conversely, some people might only push the dipstick part of the way in, check the level, and think it's full when it's actually low. The key is consistency and understanding what you're seeing. The oil level can sometimes be tricky to read, especially with fresh, clean oil that is almost transparent. You need to hold the dipstick in good light and look for the highest point where there is a consistent film of oil on both sides of the stick. When you pull the dipstick out, a thin film of oil clings to it due to surface tension and capillary action within the dipstick tube. This can sometimes leave smears or streaks of oil higher up on the stick than the actual level in the pan. This is why it's important to look for the solid, uniform oil level line, not just the highest point a stray droplet may have reached. Waiting for the oil to settle minimizes this effect. The correct, foolproof method is this. The car must be on level ground. The engine should be off for at least 5 to 10 minutes. Pull the dipstick out completely. Wipe it thoroughly with a clean, lint-free rag. Reinsert the dipstick slowly and make sure it is seated all the way down. Pull it straight out again and immediately read the level in good light. This is the only way to get a true and accurate measurement. Number 18. Spilling oil on other components. This might seem like just a messy inconvenience, but spilling oil on other engine components can have serious consequences. A common mistake is being careless when removing the oil filter, allowing the oil trapped inside it to spill down the side of the engine. Another is missing the fill hole when pouring in new oil, splashing it over the valve cover. If this oil gets onto the serpentine belt or timing belt, it can cause the rubber to degrade, soften, and eventually slip or snap, which on many engines can cause the pistons to collide with the valves, completely destroying the engine. If oil spills onto the hot exhaust manifold or catalytic converter, it will create a foul-smelling smoke, and in extreme cases, it can pose a fire hazard. Oil spilled on oxygen sensors can contaminate them, leading to incorrect readings, poor fuel economy, and a check engine light. Oil can also damage rubber hoses and electrical wiring insulation over time. Most automotive belts and hoses are made from EPDM, ethylene propylene dieno monomer rubber. While EPDM has good resistance to heat and weather, it is not highly resistant to petroleum-based oils. The oil can cause the rubber to swell, soften, and lose its structural integrity over time, leading to premature failure. Exhaust manifolds can reach temperatures well over 1000 degrees, 540 degrees. The auto-ignition temperature of most motor oils is between 500 to 700 degrees, 260, 370 degrees. Spilled oil on a hot exhaust component will certainly smoke and burn off, and if there is a sufficient quantity of oil or a leak that continues to drip, it can ignite. Be methodical and clean. Use a funnel with a wide mouth when adding new oil. Have rags readily available to catch any drips from the filter as you remove it. If you do spill oil, don't just ignore it. Use a quality degreaser and a rag to clean it up thoroughly before it has a chance to cause any damage. Number 19. Disposing of oil improperly. The final fatal error has less to do with the immediate health of your engine and more with the health of our planet and your legal standing. After you're done, you are left with over a gallon of used motor oil, which is a hazardous material filled with heavy metals and toxic chemicals. Simply pouring it down a storm drain, onto the ground, or throwing it in the trash is illegal, environmentally catastrophic, and completely irresponsible. A single gallon of used oil can contaminate 1 million gallons of fresh water. It's poison. Illegally dumping oil can come with massive fines and, in some jurisdictions, even jail time. From a practical standpoint, leaving pools of old oil on your driveway is not only an eyesore but can also soften and damage the asphalt over time. It's a sign of sloppy work that reflects a lack of respect for your property, your community, and the environment. There is no excuse for improper disposal. Every auto parts store is required by law in most places to accept used motor oil for recycling, completely free of charge. All you need to do is pour the old oil from your drain pan into the empty bottles your new oil came in, or any other sealed container, and take it with you on your next trip to the store. It's that simple. A professional, whether in a workshop or in their own garage, always cleans up their mess and disposes of waste responsibly. It's the final, crucial step in a job well done. Completing a technically perfect oil change only to then poison the groundwater is a failure of the highest order. Taking those few extra minutes to properly bottle up and recycle your used oil is what separates a true enthusiast from a careless amateur.